Oh, it's a fun day. It's a fun day to record. I just try to hit record, and there's new features, new studio, new all sorts of things. It's a great day to be ready for the draft and ready for trades and ready for trades and then ready for our draft. I mean, that's kind of what's happening over the next 2 weeks. So I'm excited to talk football. Real NFL and a little bit of GMs. We've got Panthers, we got Giants, we got Eagles on with me, and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Cool. And yes, it's sometimes the insight into each other's lives here, where we're going to talk some football and in making menial tasks better, like cleaning your kitchen or all sorts of other fun things. So for those thinking that we're doing this professionally in some kind of podcasting booth, I hope that you've assuaged yourself of that disillusion by this point. But speaking of disillusions, every rookie is going to hit, and they're going to hit fantastically, and the NFL will never be the same. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to take away of what's coming from this draft, right, guys?
Yes, 100%. All wide receivers won't have jobs, or all veteran wide receivers won't have jobs. They'll be replaced by all the rookies. And same with offensive linemen, I guess.
Yes, Ainias Smith will learn how to run a route tree and not be a glorified running back at wide receiver.
Yep, and every player that has an upside position or a better fit for their system is going to land in that system. I mean, it's just a matter of time, guys. Anyone who says otherwise is just an idiot.
All teams will draft for needs in the first 3 rounds. They won't go best player available. Yeah.
All landing spots will be floors.
Yeah, every offensive player is going to end up in the 49ers. No one's going to end up on the Giants.
Or the Chiefs. Don't forget that. They're going to end up on the Chiefs, too.
So you joke, but I think you'd rather have a player landing on the Giants than the 49ers, because they would just get all the targets.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't think of a single one other than a linebacker. And anybody who can run can take Mike McFadden's job.
Yeah, he's overachieved for sure.
But the fun part at this point is kind of, I guess, 2 on, because what is, again, the worst kept secret in football that Caleb's going 1 to the Bears. Although it would be hilarious to see last minute some kind of heel turn where the Bears trade out of 1 and somebody moves up and gets them. Again, there's drama that could be had here, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to work. Now it's, I guess, betting market saying for sure it's going to be Jalen Daniels at 2. You guys agree, or you guys think it's Vegas is onto something?
There's been a lot of smoke. A lot of smoke about it.
Yeah, and again, we're not talking like, here's my inside source and stuff like that. It's more the, hey, we're all looking into this stuff. We're all, moving around in the first round in this draft and fun stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, there's no reason for the Commanders to try and put a smoke screen out there. It's not like they're worried about someone trading up to get their guy. So if all the points are pointing at Daniels, it seems very likely that it's going to be Daniels.
Well, they're doing all of their interviews in the next 2 days, right?
Yeah, all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
they literally have Penix. They have everybody but Caleb going to be in town for next Tuesday.
Well, look, if they haven't they don't have a strong leaning at this point, then they're just commandering, which is great. So I hope J.J. McCarthy blows them out of the water and they make that move at 2.
Man. It's got to be Jaden Daniels. Think about it.
It's okay. He'll be going to the Giants.
Lamar's in Baltimore, and then you got the Baltimore-Washington rivalry right there. One's got big brother Lamar, little brother Jaden down in Washington, all that fun stuff. It's too good.
And I mean,
I'm definitely one who's sold on putting Jaden too.
He also just fits they both May and McCarthy are like a little bit more projecting based off of trades. I mean, I think that like some growth is needed there, whereas like Daniels, like the Washington roster offensively is ready for someone to just like kind of come in, and I think they want results this year with the new ownership. So it all kind of aligns.
Well, other than the offensive line, I just feel for but that's why you go get the more athletic of the three guys, so you can at least kind of try to protect himself with the bad tackles.
That's true. Although Daniels did take a couple of big ins this year, so some of that he's still got to learn.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah,
historically,
he definitely
known for
took a lot of
protecting himself.
unnecessary big hits, but he stayed healthy.
But
You also have the fun of the vertical passing offense at LSU, and the just mix with with Jahan Dotson there.
well, again, if these guys know anything, it would be interesting to see if somehow Jaden ends up on the same team as Ayuk. Who knows? I guess RJ, as our resident New England fan, you keeping 3 or you want to move 3?
No, I want all of the Vikings picks this first rounders this year.
And the first next year, probably.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean that'd be nice. Doesn't even have to. Just get us something after 34. I'd be happy with that.
You'd rather have all that than Drake May?
Yeah, because you just take the 4th or the 5th quarterback available.
I mean, the problem with May going into New England, or any quarterback going into New England, is they have nothing else on offense. Like, literally nothing else. So they're just going to be set up to fail, and you're going to waste a year or two, give them the dreaded scar tissue of like what happens when my offense sucks. It makes no sense to like put them in currently.
Right.
So the quality of offensive line and secondary evaporates really quick, like mid-second round. So I would much rather have like one of the top tier corners, one of the top tier tackles or guards, and take like the third. Like if you're not taking one of the top 2 quarterbacks, the rest of them are all projects. So I just take one of the lesser projects, take like Bo Nix, and just get better at other positions where you are going to get like the top tier players.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. Move down, pick up talent, because at this point you need players, you need talent, and get guys in positions that are going to take 12 games a year to acclimate to the league. I mean, that's kind of what you have to do when you get offensive linemen or certain defense positions. So just get them, plug them in, get them learning, and then go hit it again next year.
Yeah, I mean, if they take the Vikings deal, then I mean, at 11, they're still looking at likely one of the premium positions in the draft.
Yep.
Plus, you're adding at least a first and a second this year or next year, and I would expect next year's first as well. I mean, it just makes sense from that roster standpoint to just add a bunch of high-tier dart throws.
Right.
Yeah, but if you also go back to draft analytics and you go look at the early 2000s Jags and the Raiders, and you just look at their draft profiles and look at all the picks they spent on offensive players in the first 2-3 rounds and how many of them just flat out bust. Sometimes it's not having extra picks isn't really going to fix the problem when it comes to the skill positions. You're usually better off than fixing that by trading, is what we've really seen more recently. So where it's like,
Sure.
if they do trade down and you have 23, is that the team that calls the Niners and goes, okay, we need Ayuk. We don't have anyone to throw him the ball this year, but we'll pay you a fuck ton of money because we suck.
Right.
Over actually using that pick.
I mean, I'm definitely not complaining if that happens.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty happy scenario for Pats fans. Like if 11 is, you assume we just take the quarterback there, whoever you like of Penix or Nix, um, and then yeah, if you get Ayuk, I mean, even if it's not Ayuk, if it's Higgins, although I know apparently he's not really for sale, um, that would be pretty sweet. But yeah, I think still you get those draft picks so that you can maneuver, whether it's acquiring the talent via draft or trading for it.
So again, if it goes 3 quarterbacks, 1, 2, 3, interesting debate we had in chat earlier. I think Carolina, does Arizona even pick up the phone? Because they were on like one of the series, wasn't it? Like on Amazon or HBO or something like that, where they had footage of the GM working the phones last year. Like that doesn't seem like the guy who's gonna not pick up if somebody calls about 4.
Yeah, I mean, didn't
Well, yeah.
they
Well,
trade
for
back up last
there's a
year?
big difference. Yeah. Well, there's a big difference last year and what they thought of their team going into the next year. Like you already knew Kyler was going to miss half the year. I think all the fan base essentially knew the expectations were, we're sitting down for this year. We're going to try to get some good pieces to rebuild the offense and defense, get the picks, this, that, and the other. Kyler's back. Kyler looked good, and there's no excuses. They're supposed to be good, at least competitive. And, what do they need to be competitive more than anything right now? A receiver. Like Hollywood's gone. They traded away the small Purdue man. They don't have a lot of weapons on that roster outside of Trey McBride. So where it's, if you get the top receiver and his name happens to be a Harrison Jr. and he's sitting there at 4, is there much of a reason to answer the phone?
I mean, I do think it's possible like the Giants could trade up from 6, so then you're still guaranteed one of the top 2 receivers. I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. But outside of New York, I don't think I answer the phone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like the Jets came up from 10, or even the Bears at 9, if they really want to like pair neighbors with Caleb since they're buddies or so whatever. But I mean, I think there's like anyone in the top 10 or 11 is still a consideration.
Yeah, like if the Bears offered 9 in their first next year to go to 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do that because it's possible that Wilm is there, and worst case he's not. You could maybe trade down again and go for Thomas, or AD if whatever your next guy is.
Again, but this is the fun part about our league. We're galaxy braining this. Like no GM is going to be like, well, yeah, I'm just going to keep trading down 7 times in the first round until I get to a place I like, and then I'll take that guy there and optimize the pick. Like, yes, we do that shit all the time here, but that's not real life.
Yeah.
In real life, it's a legacy Hall of Fame player's son who has the best tape. So it's kind of hard for me to bypass him for anything. Like I can understand moving down to 6 if you have similar grades on, neighbors or whoever. But I just don't see them as a team that's going to be very willing to move compared to the Chargers at 5.
They did the like trade down, trade back up to get their guy last year, didn't they? That's how they got Paris.
Yes, the trade was with Houston. And, everyone came out of that draft like, oh, the Cardinals might have 2 top 5 picks this next year. Obviously, Houston and C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson turned it all around. But, I think that was the absolute best case for the Texans. I think the majority of fans, that GM and everyone thought he probably had 2 top 16 picks this year. And, the Cardinals also have plenty of draft capital. And they've used plenty of draft capital. So they definitely have the freedom to just sit there and take the player because, they have 4. I think they have 27. And then I think they have 2 in the top 10 of the second round, too. So it's not like they're really hurting and need to move down.
Yeah. And at some point, you got to add blue chippers, right?
Yeah. Whereas, the Chargers at 5, you're paying Herbert an arm and a leg. You're paying Mac. You're paying Derwin. You're paying everybody and their mother. When you pay everybody and their mother, you need as many cheap guys you can get. So That's why I can see them at 5 going, yes, please, anybody.
No, that's true. So, because there's also the part of, hey, you said, James, keep it simple. What do I need? I need a receiver. I have a chance to get the best receiver and a generational guy here. Just let's not be stupid about this. But who knows? That doesn't make for good TV. Okay, so 5. It's a lineman, right? Like, is Harbaugh going to do this to us?
Yeah, it definitely should be. That's the assumption that the wide receiver one's gone. I mean, just go Malik Neighbors. It's fine. He'll do everything that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen did last year.
I'm going to be honest. I know it sounds crazy, but I honestly think it's Joe Alt no matter what. I think if Marv is on the board, like to me, they're trading down. But if they aren't trading down, I think it's Joe Alt, period. Like, I don't see them taking Marv. Marv doesn't fix their inability to be physical on the offensive line and run the ball. And, they have a few picks here and there. This is a good wide receiver class. They did take Johnston last year with the first-round pick. It's a new regime and everything, and I get that. But, if you don't give the guy any snaps at all, is there any real way to grade him out? Like, I definitely think he's a bust. I don't really care for him. And if I was a Charger fan, I would want somebody else. And I can understand the want, but if you don't fix that run game, you can't play action and help everybody.
It's definitely concerning that he didn't find his way onto the field without injuries. But, that's what they might have to roll with as their main pass catcher.
Yeah, when you're getting out-snapped by a dude named Alex Erickson, and it's not because you're hurt, there's a problem.
I'm sure he was half decent at some point when he was on the Bengals.
So the other thing I was thinking about here is you got how many vet defenders on the Chargers this offseason that had a chance probably to go elsewhere if they didn't renegotiate or find a way to stay in LA, but easily could have found their way out, that decided to stick around. Like, if these guys went shopping with 5, I guess I wonder what they would be able to pull back.
I mean, it would be a haul of picks, probably. I don't think at this point in the offseason, I don't think anybody's really shopping multiple veterans and trying to make moves. If it's a premium player that may get the pick, like the pick itself, and then like a lower pick, that makes sense. But I don't know if anybody's like coming with a package of like, hey, we have a wide receiver.
Here's Justin Jefferson for 5.
That seems. I mean, I don't want to say possible, but it seems reasonable.
The issue with that just becomes the cap.
Yeah.
Like, as much as Chargers fans and everyone would love to see that, this dude's asking for north of 30, 35 millish, and the Chargers don't have the money. I think getting draft picks from the Vikings, who seem to be the most QB needy, is realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that just comes down to they could sit there at 5 and drain the clock and just go look at the Giants and be like, y'all want JJ? And if the Giants want JJ, maybe they pick up the second and move down 1 spot. So then they get Joe Alt, and then they have 2 seconds in the top 10 or something of that nature. If they want to go bigger and splashier, of course, there's a lot of great offensive linemen in this class. And if the Vikings are willing to pay up, then they slide down to 11. Maybe we get surprised and it's the Broncos or Raiders just have an absolute, something for one of these guys, and they decide that they just can't wait and have to jump up. It seems less likely, but you never know.
Raiders
I think
would be
it's
an
no
interesting
secret.
one.
I think it's no secret they want O-line, the Chargers. So I agree. Like, moving down to like 11 or 12 is probably the max they'd want to move down to get one of the top tackles. But I don't know. Harbaugh might also just be like, Alt's our guy. We're gonna take the best guy, and this is a longer term process, and we're okay with just adding some veteran run blocking receivers and doing something later for the receiver room.
I mean, that'd be a pretty nice line with Alt added
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Well, the other interesting one, is Zach Zinner. I love the guy. He's injured. He's not going to be available for preseason and training camp more than likely, and he's a Michigan guy. If they trade down out of the early second, maybe they just pick him up with a late second after they trade down, and then they pick up an extra third. Or maybe that's where we're looking at them finally getting a receiver.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll end talking about the NFL draft with one kind of round the horn question here. What's your favorite fake trade that you've heard, either that you've thought about or heard or read someplace or something like that, that you've kind of thought, man, that would be fun if that happened?
I mean, the Bills moving up into the top 10 to take like Rome or Neighbors, whoever's left of the elite receivers there, is the most like appealing. I don't know if it's feasible, but that would be pretty fun.
This is true. James, do you have any?
For the fantasy aspect, it's pretty much same lines as Giants. Essentially, anybody with a more proven quarterback, like a Trevor Lawrence with Jacksonville, or the Bills with Josh Allen. Not trying to say the same people, or maybe even the 49ers. Any of those guys going up to get a receiver, or maybe trading Ayuk and just drafting his replacement. Like if they traded away Brandon Ayuk and drafted Ladd McConkey, that would be a lot of fun to see. Things of that nature would just be exciting to me.
Ladd McConkey on a team with Christian McCaffrey and Nick Bosa. Oh, man. George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, just nickname us the Honky Patrol.
It's just everything that Ladd can do with that smart of a coordinator and head coach, coordinator, offensive play caller, and him and McCaffrey, everybody, it'd be torment for other teams.
I know.
Especially in the short area.
I mean, adding like any one of the first round draft pedigree weapons to that team is a scary proposition just based off of who's currently there.
Yeah. I already mentioned my my hope for who the mystery team is in the Ayuk bidding, but the fake trade that I had in my head, and there's no way it would happen in real life, but it would be fun as hell, is Herbert and 5 for 1 and 9.
Another one that's not even a trade. I just want to see Xavier Worthy go to the Dolphins just so that they can just be the Need for Speed team.
People would just shit themselves. They'd just be like, it's Miami's a track meet. That's all there is to it. Oh, man. I can't wait. What? Down to how many days?
Less than 9, was it 9 days?
I guess so. So just around the corner. So talking about our draft, our top 10 has moved around a little bit the last week or so. And who knows, maybe move a little bit more. 101 moving out of Philadelphia and making its way over to the Chargers as they look to reposition themselves. Again,
There was a middleman there that probably should be talked about.
No, not really. And that wasn't important.
We'll talk about it in the trades.
Maybe.
Well, it wasn't a taxi theft, so definitely had to have been traded.
Yep. And then, again, Panthers repositioned himself a little bit in some of his pieces. RJ staying involved at 10. So I guess with the way things are falling, what do you guys see as almost the pivot points of the draft in our league? Do you see any, or is it too soon to tell? Do you think?
Like what do you like as far as tier breaks and things like that? The like important picks that are gonna happen.
Well, I mean, if it's tier breaks or decision points or stuff like that, where it's okay, if it's we think QB goes the first two picks, Giants says X and Y. Cardinals is probably grabbing a quarterback there. What do Seahawks do there? Is it Seahawks at 6 that okay? Does he go for the third receiver if he's there? If all three receivers are gone, does he trade out? Where the kind of strategy pivot points are? Do you think?
I think it's 107, somewhere between 10 and 13, depending on like who's picked in front of those picks. And then I would probably say as we transition into the second round, probably wherever the picks after mine, because Broncos has 4 picks there.
Yep.
There's a potential where like 3 players are available and he trades out of one of those picks. Yeah, stuff like that's where I can see like the most movement. I could see Giants moving out of 7 if like the first 6 picks are all relatively chalk. Same with like towards the back end of the top 15. Yeah. Those are the picks of interest, I think, right now.
I think the Colts at 8 and 9 are kind of interesting too, because like obviously he's not competing this year, so it's like, is he gonna maybe take a swing on a longer term prospect versus like maybe best player available at the time? Like the running backs might not make sense for him there, so they might keep going. If there is a running back that becomes, the Dallas running back, right? If that's in play. Yeah, I think that's like an interesting switch. And then Panthers, is it you at 10, 11 or around that range?
I'm at 10. Panthers is at 11. And then I think it's Pats after us. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like kind of like an interesting spot too, where like you're competing, Panthers is competing, Pats probably takes best player available. I know he's pretty thirsty for a quarterback, and like maybe he just has to move for Knicks or Penix at that range if they land in a starting spot in the first round or potential starting spot. So like those are like, to me that's like the 8 to 12 range is like the biggest interesting like draft shaping range.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that.
Awesome. That was more than I expected and very in depth, guys. So appreciate the transparency and the openness at this point, since a good number of you guys are involved in a lot of what was just said. All right. So I guess we'll move to the trades portion here. Is anyone else having some sound issues? No?
I hear feedback.
I couldn't hear what you said. Yeah, there's a lot of feedback.
Okay. So
I think it's on Panthers.
All right, so we'll see if it just was a one-time thing or if it comes back here. But we'll jump into the trades. Let's see. So transactions, pulling up trades, and how many have happened since our last get together?
9. Pretty boring. Guys,
Yeah.
step it up.
Lame. Nothing happened. We can probably just skip this section.
Oh no, we definitely got to dive into this. There's some fun stuff at the beginning.
All right, so kicking it off in post-pod conversations, Panthers and I getting together 111 and 112 to the Panthers for Saquon, Amari Burney, and 110. Burney kind of being the cap dump he is, 110, and Barkley for 111 and 112. So Made sense.
Yeah, I
Oh,
thought
you
it
guys
was
want me to
pretty
talk
good
about the next
value.
deal in coordination with this because, it kind of impacts it. So, Saquon doesn't stay on my team long, nor does the 110. With Patrick Taylor, Michael Pittman, Roquan Smith, C.J. Henderson to the Eagles for Cam Akers, Latavius Murray, Keenan Allen, Luke Masterson, Kendall Fuller, and 2 inconsequential draft picks. So I think it's 101 and 119.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah, one of those is definitely inconsequential.
Hmm.
Exactly. No big deal. I don't even know why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I think we knew like RJ what might have moved this pick all along. And yeah, I mean, as a division mate, it was a little frustrating watching him just build out depth in one move. But we'll see. I mean, he probably positioned himself as a front runner for the division. Um, but he's got some like expensive pieces who are also coming close to their like peak maybe production wise. Between like I think Pittman's like 27 now, right? Roquan's a little bit older than you think. Saquon, obviously older running back. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, just getting the sheer depth is better than the potential of like Harrison or Caleb, one player at 101. But yeah, I mean, I like the value. I think it's funny because I know Mike. I sent a trade sort of similar with the pieces involved. Like after you guys had already agreed to this trade, so we were kind of thinking along the same lines. Um, but yeah, it's fun when like a team kind of flips profiles, right? RJ was kind of in the he was rebuilding. Obviously, he had 101, and then now when you look at his roster, you would not think that was the worst team in the league last year, right?
yeah, it's been fun to build it out. I'm really happy with a lot of the players that I've ended up with. A lot of the ones that I did target towards like the top tiers of their positions, I've looked up and been able to trade for, and this was the right value for 101, and it was really hard to like place it. But as I started building out a team, I started to get a better idea. Weirdly enough, I think the thing that made it happen was 119 for Roquan.
Mm.
Because we had the rest of it kind of worked out, and I wasn't too keen on it, but I wanted Roquan, and I was fine with giving up the 119. But basically, Barkley 110, and is it 4 years I get younger at wide receiver, and I still maintain like a top 15 wide receiver.
Oh yeah, I think Pittman is a couple tiers dynasty wise above Keenan at this point.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was a great haul. I mean, just overall. But I think it's the kind of haul that would take to get 101 in a strong draft year.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that proves itself by the pick moving again for another like similar big haul.
Yes.
Yep. Oh yeah. That next deal too. So there I was with the 101. I was ready to rebuild. I was going to take Caleb Williams. I was excited. It was going to be. I haven't actually taken a 101 in a couple of years. I had him, but I don't actually think I've made the pick.
Mike, there's no way that for more than a nanosecond you thought you might hold that pick and start a rebuild.
It was more than a nanosecond. I was excited to try and build around Caleb. I thought it was going to be fun. Who knows where Stone's going to be in terms of whether he actually starts a few games for Denver or stuff like that next year. Do that while building around. Who knows? But it wasn't meant to be. I think Chargers. I knew Chargers was trying to look at rebuilding with his asset, so sent a couple ideas back and forth, and then Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, the 101, the 115, the 119, 213, 523, 525, and 528 to the Chargers for Joe Burrow, Malik Cunningham, Garrett Wilson, Trey McBride, the 415 and the 416. Those 2 fourths were critical to making the deal happen.
I'd imagine conversations broke down at some point over those fourths, and then,
They had to be connecting too, so thank God.
This is a haul that this changes Mike's team. I like it.
Yeah. So
Sorry. Yeah, no, I had to come off mute. Yeah, no, definitely a haul. Feedback again. Oh, he got the boot. But yeah, I mean, it's also like another like league shifting thing, because I know Chargers was like a couple pieces away potentially from competing in that division, with Bill throwing in the towel, and so him just making that decision of I'm gonna restart, and he's a new owner, so it makes sense. He guys wants to like rebuild the team in his own players of interest, which is great. So yeah, it's kind of like 2 divisions are massively impacted. I know Jeremy was probably beside himself because it was less than 24 hours for you to flip the 101. But that's why this league's great, because shit like this just happens, and it's just like a Tuesday.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It was more than a nanosecond, I swear. I did trade for the pick with the intent to make it. Then I changed my mind.
There's no apologies needed. This is a fantastic call. These are all like premium players that you want. I mean, Malik Cunningham, probably not, but the other 3 are superstars. I'm interested at like how much Deshaun Watson was valued. It feels like he was almost thrown in to make the cap work. That's the only thing that stands out to me.
I mean, this kind of came together pretty quickly. It was, I sent something like this over as a general concept. It was, hey, let's maybe tweak this. So I sent something else over. He said, let's go back to the original concept, which was something off of this, and then it was slight tweaking here and there. So it's not like some trades that are 5 or 6 counters back and forth as what is actually in the package comes together. This just again came together quickly.
Yeah. I mean, when you start moving larger and larger pieces, some of the other pieces start to just look insignificant at that point, and they are to get deals like this done. So like I like it. It's fun for the league. It's enjoyable. But Watson got thrown in, so it was interesting. I think it's really good for Chargers, who can basically draft a future quarterback and roll the dice on Watson for a year.
I mean, I expect coming out of the draft, there might be a couple of teams who might need a quarterback. Like, depending on what happens with the Vikings, like 49ers might need to come knocking, be like, shit, I'll trade you whatever for Watson, since Sammy is gonna lose his job theoretically. So that could just be another pick or asset that he can add down the road. And as a quarterback goes down, tanking team, that they then have a lot of leverage for a contender who's like, shit, I need to add some quarterback points, and let me make this happen. So I don't expect Watson on his roster by the end of the season, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's definitely in that like group. There's a handful of quarterbacks where it's like you're not quite sure what's going to happen, but you like what they flashed in the past enough to where somebody's going to buy him.
Well, I mean, and one of the things I liked about Watson, why I wanted to go get him, is at some point in the next, 2 or 3 months, there's going to be the round of radio shows where everyone starts looking at, okay, who are the mobile mobile quarterbacks? Who are the quarterbacks that can get you 4,000 yards passing and 600 yards rushing or a good number of rushing touchdowns? Like, oh, who's cheapest? Oh, Deshaun Watson. Huh? We should go get him. He'll get popular. He'll get steamed up. He'll get moved.
That's been happening for a month already.
Yeah. So it's a
Every
matter of time.
dynasty website's telling you to buy all of the running quarterbacks.
Yep.
Kyler Murray, Sean Watson.
Nope, now's the time to go get him. So, and then thankfully, a couple trades that don't involve me. Pats and Panthers getting together. Jaden Reed, Sterling Thomas, 122 and 313 for Jahan Dotson, Deron Bland, and the 112. James, this was you. So, are you able to comment on this?
He left, so no. He's
Oh,
not.
okay. I wasn't sure if he was still trying to work out his stuff. I mean, just makes sense as a trade.
Yeah, I can't believe Reed has moved so much. I think he's like
Yeah.
a player like we all like, but we all I guess, like him enough to try and just flip him for like a little bit more of a premium, pick, because he's kind of been moving around for firsts in some range this year. So it's kind of interesting. If I had Reed, I would probably just hold, but that's me.
Yeah. Again, I like Reed a lot. Went and got him in my home league. So I think it makes sense. Good guy to go get in stash now. Dotson's a nice bounce back candidate, and 112 is a great place to be. So I think serves both sides well. Then Pat's turning around and moving 224 with Keanu Benton for Bradley Chubb. It's a nice pickup on the pass rush if you think Chubb's going to keep that role next year.
Yeah, I thought that was a solid trade.
Yeah, it's good value, but I mean, Chubb's probably not playing most of the year, right? Because he's coming off the ACL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good trade for Saints too. Like that seems to be the Chubb value is like a quality player and a second. Like that seems fine. Like either side should be happy with whatever they walk away in that trade.
Yep. Next up, we've got let's see, Trey Tucker for Troy Hill and 224. RJ, you got what you're looking for?
Yeah, I'm happy. It took a while, but that was the price.
Yep. Then let's see, Bears and Chiefs making some magic happen earlier today. As the sweepstakes was going on, they got the trading kicked off. Kyle Van Noy, DJ Turner, and 219 for Chase Brown, Alan Lazard, and Marshawn Lattimore. There's a stock in the shelves. I think, everyone's a little down on Lazard right now, but if the Jets come through the draft without taking a receiver and, no big deals made, could be get kind of interesting later in the year.
Yeah. I like the haul for both, like the hauls for both both sides. Like I would love to be somebody that acquired a second and Kyle Van Noy, but to get Chase Brown, Lazard, and Lattimore, that's a fantastic group of players.
Yep. Then Avery Williams for 504, and then Commanders moving to 125 to acquire yet another defensive end in Kwity Paye. So now he has Bosa, Garrett, Burns, and Kwity. No one's beating his pass rush next year.
Yeah, definitely not. No, he's got that cornered. and I maybe his hope is to, because he has 4 of them, he's going to be the only one that has like an expendable one and be able to just like name his, hold someone's feet to the fire in order to get them. But I mean, I think he's gotten good value on like every single one of these DE acquisitions, which is annoying. Again, as a division mate. But yeah, you'd think that these assets would be used to fill out any other position on his roster.
Yeah.
He does have 4 picks, right? Or at least currently, for this year's draft. But or at least he has 3 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I was him, I probably would have tried to invest that elsewhere personally. Just given the fact that D is already, I mean, you could take Pay out of it, and he probably still has the best DE room hands down in the league. So like, this is just, I mean, they say in the league you can never have too many pass rushers, but like in our league, you might be able to have too many pass rushers since you can only
Right.
start 2. Right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that'll become more obvious when like there's a guy scoring 12 points on your bench, and then you have like a wide receiver that scores 4 points. So,
Well, I don't know. This also might give him the flexibility to, if he wants to move, one of the bigger 3 assets at the position, that he can kind of go into negotiation and say, okay, if I've got to bring out the dollars, I got these guys I can pull out. If I got to pull out a quarter, I got a quitty in there or something like that. So, gives him some flexibility.
we're gonna talk about this thing that just happened 6 minutes ago. That I don't like it, but
This thing,
yeah,
sure, why not? Conclusion of the sweepstakes, the mystery team. It's time for the annual Vikings-Bengals trade. It involves a lot of very expensive at the time assets. And usually Chris ends up getting the better of the trade. But it's happening again. And it's Joe Burrow, Garrett Wilson, and Trey McBride going to the Bengals for Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson. So I now have the Minnesota backfield. I have the number 1 Minnesota receiver, and I have the Minnesota tight end. So now it's all that's left for me is to turn around to the 49ers and try and get Sam Darnold, so I can have the quarterback too, and I'll just start the entire Minnesota offense as the Vikings. So, wouldn't that be pretty true to form?
I mean, that was Bengals playing last year, right?
I can't wait until you trade Keenan Allen plus for Addison. It's gonna be hilarious.
Hey, I'll invest in a Kevin O'Connell offense. It's turned out pretty well for people in the past.
What does that say for Vikings fans, where he's shedding the entire offense?
Yeah, and investing in the Bears in some places here too. He's got the Bears backfield with Bijan,
So I will say I'm never a fan of turning like some of these powerhouse teams into younger, slightly better teams. So that's where I kind of land on it. Like turning TJ into
Bengals get
McBride.
stronger. Yeah, that's yeah. I mean,
But I feel like he
obviously
does this.
JJ downgrade.
he goes through this rotation often. Like, didn't he do this with Herbert? And I feel like other quarterbacks where he'll invest in, okay, I want the young long-term guy, and then that'll rotate into something. That'll rotate into something, and then he'll be starting, Josh Dobbs, and then rotate into the offseason into,
Yeah, for sure. He's still without a third wide receiver, so I can see Joe Burrow being traded for, some bridge quarterback and Chris Olave or something.
Hey, Lions has the capital probably to pull that off.
Well, he's got Josh Allen. He doesn't need.
He can have both. Imagine that stack.
Burrow Allen stack.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you guys for being on, and sorry for the technical difficulties there. And we'll get into the post pod and see what other trouble we can get into. But have a good one. And, as mentioned, about 10 days to the draft. Get excited.